Here we go. Here's another question. What are your thoughts on balance in a lifestyle? Health, physical, mental, emotional, etc. My thoughts on balance are everything is balance, right? So if you notice that something is getting out of balance, pay attention to it and work on that thing and set a plan, set some goals, write them down, and take action towards those things and create that balance in your life, create that harmony. And I think where you start, like the most important thing on that balancing spectrum is your mindset and your mental attitude. Because without that, you will begin to, you lose balance. It's like your equilibrium, right? You can have all the plans in the world, but if your equilibrium is off, all your plans to achieve and balance and have this harmonious life, they're gonna fuck up, because you're gonna be wobbling and fucking spinning. You know what I mean? So your mindset is like that. It's like your equilibrium. So that's something that I would highly recommend that people focus on first and foremost above everything else. Can you talk about the ego going through an awakening, if you are familiar with the term? Yes, absolutely. I think the ego is necessary. I think it needs to be tamed. It needs to be understood. And when people say shit like, "Oh, I had an ego death," or maybe that's not the word, but like, if anybody says that they don't have an ego, that is their ego talking. So everybody has an ego. I believe that ego is necessary, but what is even more necessary is having awareness of it and not being controlled by it. That is what's the most important thing. And most people aren't aware of it, therefore they are controlled by it. And being controlled by your ego is like, I don't know, like riding a wild, untamed stallion, right? Might be majestic and beautiful and powerful and the ability to do great things. However, you hurt and you break things and you cause more destruction than you do anything else. And so when you have an unbridled, is it brittled or bridled? Whatever. Ego, you are bound for a life of destruction. Internal, external, all around you. It'll simply just be a life of chaos. Because you are not a wild stallion, right? You're actually far more powerful. And until you realize that your ego in your ability to be so immensely destructive, until you realize that, you will, let me formulate this thought. You will never reach the full extent of your power. Because real power is controlling that tornado of a... Real power is controlling power, is harnessing power. That's what real power is. I'm sure we've all had some sort of egoic projection in the past where we get angry and be like, you don't know, I'll do this and I'll do that, and you don't know who I am, and da-da-da, like all this stuff, right? This like projection of like, see me, here is my identity, right? But being able to see past the ego, that is a skill that is developed. And I almost want to say that it's important to have an ego, not for yourself necessarily, but for the world in which we operate today. And to have it tamed. It's like, this is a horrible analogy, and I hate zombies, but imagine like you had this cure to heal all the zombies, right? You're in a zombie apocalypse and you have this cure. But the only way for you to administer that cure is to immerse yourself within these zombie communities. And the only way to do that is, well, to probably look the part, I assume. You gotta look the part. So what do? You look the part. And while you're in there and you're playing that role, you administer the cure. And in the same way, it's like we live in this world with this ego. However, we're not defined by the ego like most people are, because it is their identity, it is the basis of all their being, and they rely on it so much that if anything threatens it, they'll erupt. They become hostile, right? And self-destruct. But you knowing that you're more than your ego, operating in a world that mainly operates on ego, you can administer something more. Love, self-respect, an example to the rest of the world that we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to hide behind this identity that was created for us. We can actually expand and be so much more. And here's what that looks like. And this is why I love the story of Jesus, and not just him, but like great influencers of the world who were a part of societies that didn't necessarily accept them. However, they made such great change. So anyway, this is the way that I kind of view ego, and that was my rough metaphor on how I think all of that works and why it's necessary, and blah, blah, blah.